All right, so this is one of those talking head videos. Feel free to minimize it. Feel free to even mute it if you want to, I guess, but that's besides the point. We're gonna talk about the precedent that's been set, how dangerous this is, and what the future holds potentially, what the future could look like because of Article 13, or more commonly known as Article 13. It's actually the European Union Directive on Copyright. Yeah, you could tell that was written by old people. Now, today's video is brought to you by NordVPN, a service I've been using for a long time and is becoming more relevant than ever, as we will talk about in today's video. Obviously, with the passing of the European Union Directive on Copyright, and specifically Article 13. We'll be talking about that in today's video. So we're probably gonna see a huge rise in VPN traffic here in the near future because of net neutrality and now Article 13. But fortunately, NordVPN has you covered with thousands of servers in more than 61 countries, including, you guessed it, Europe. In fact, NordVPN even has a campaign going right now to bring awareness to this ongoing issue with a Fight the Meme Ban with Memes competition taking place. In fact, you guys can find a link down in the description below. It's designed to make people aware of what is happening and what we are talking about in today's video. But not only all of this, it's just good practice to protect and encrypt your data when you connect to the internet. With military-grade encryption, you can bet that the ISPs and the governments and all these other entities will not be spying on your data. In fact, new users who sign up for NordVPN using my offer code, Jayztwocents at checkout, can save 75% off a 3-year membership. That is a very small price to pay to maintain the open freedom of your internet experience. So what are you guys waiting for? Start taking things serious and shove it to Article 13 by signing up for NordVPN using my link in the description below. All right, so here's the thing. Net neutrality was a big, bad, scary thing because it basically gave the ISPs freedom to lock down the internet, if that makes sense, which is such an oxymoron right there. Because an oxymoron written by morons, that being EduPie. Net neutrality was good. The battle of net neutrality was lost because of corporations paying billions and millions and bajillions of dollars to people like EduPie. But you know what though? That kind of pales in comparison to what Article 13 can do to the future, because the biggest issue with net neutrality, or the lack of net neutrality, is the fact that ISPs could charge you. They could charge you to connect to YouTube. They could charge you to connect to Netflix, or they could throttle your internet, which they currently do. They can slow down your internet connection to these sites because they are bandwidth hogs. Or if you want to get it full speed, you pay for it. And that's the spirit of non-net neutrality. But this isn't a discussion about net neutrality. It's much, much worse. And that being, as I already mentioned, the European Directive on Copyright, the European Union Directive on Copyright. Now, what that basically has is it's a big law. It's a big legislative piece of a bunch of old baby boomers that sit around in some parliament in Europe somewhere and to say, this is the way it should be done. Can someone help me log in my AOL account? Just listen to some of the legislators and law passers talk about lawmakers, passers, whatever. Just listen to, it's like listening to them talk about the internet is like listening to me talk about law. These lawmakers that pass Article 13 still use a trackball. Someone out there watching this right now is like, I still use a trackball. Yeah. If you use a trackball, hit F. Anyway, so Article 13, the way things, okay, to understand what's changing, you have to understand the way things currently work. Now, right now on YouTube, I'm gonna use the United States, I'm hungry. Try to have a serious conversation, guys. The United States of A1. But to understand the potential of how this could all work in the future, you have to understand how it currently works today. At least yesterday or the day before it actually went into effect. Here in the United States, it's the only laws I know and can go by, so I can tell you the way it currently works, at least with YouTube, because YouTube does have to follow the local laws of the areas that they're being viewed. So if you're viewing YouTube in Europe or you're viewing it in China, I think you can view it in China, maybe on a VPN. If you're viewing it in Korea, or you're viewing it in Taiwan or South Africa, there are local laws that have to be applied to where you're currently watching things. Because although the internet is all encompassing and it connects the entire world, you're still bound by your local laws. So I am in the United States and those are the laws I know and understand, so that's what I'm gonna be referencing, but it could affect us here because it sets a precedent and other governments like to follow suit with those that pioneer and do laws and things first, and so this could be making its way here. And the problem is I see Article 13 and the European Union Directive on Copyright with the old people here in the United States going,
that sounds like a really good idea.
The way it currently works right now is if I upload a video or Kyle uploads a video that uses any other material. I created Jayztwocents. I upload these videos. This is content that I own because it's intellectual property. I'm making this, I'm creating it, and if someone takes it and uploads it, I can legally claim that content under copyright. Kyle did that with the Verge PC build, and you all know how that turned out. He was hit with a copyright strike because someone in the team was like, we don't like what he's saying and we're gonna copyright it, but he's protected under laws known as fair use here in the United States. So although Kyle used that piece of content from The Verge for a parody that was under fair use, in accordance of fair use, which is an actual law here that states that you can do that. You can make parodies, you can use bits as long as it's used in a new creative format and not just a re-upload or copyright, just obviously using copyrighted material for the sake of re-uploading it in its entirety. Now, fortunately, the editor-in-chief of The Verge agreed that it was an erroneous use of DMCA, which is the Digital Millennial Copyright Act, similar to Article 13 here in the United States. It's been abused many, many times. It was up to The Verge to first initiate the copyright strike, and then it was also up to The Verge to remove it. Article 13 basically states that it would be up to YouTube now to identify and make sure that copyrighted material does not make it on the platform, because YouTube does benefit from every single upload that has an ad on YouTube. They take 40% of the revenue. And as such, if they get 40% of illegal copyright uploaded material, then that makes them basically implicated in the violation as well. So Article 13, specifically in Europe, states that the platform has to be responsible for the copyright, making sure that they are in compliance and not uploading and benefiting from copyrighted material. So here's a few problems with that. One, it's very open to interpretation. In fact, they very clearly state that it's open to interpretation, and it's up to the individual countries within the Union, that being obviously the European Union, to implement a system that stops the copyright material from being re-uploaded. So one, how do you do that? It's not like YouTube or Twitter or Facebook or Google or whatever hosting platform. We'll talk a little bit more about that because there are guidelines in here or requirements in here as to who doesn't have to have a filter system, who does, et cetera, et cetera. It's not like they receive a list of this is copyrighted. It's not like they receive a database that says, here's the image match or the sound match or the sound file or whatever that states, oh, this is copyright when it's uploaded. So how is the platform supposed to know? One, because the platform now can be potentially fined and held responsible for copyrighted material, my fear is that the platform is going to become extremely sensitive. So if you thought there were a lot of false positives before, I think this is just the beginning. Now, in terms of uploading though, like I said, it's not like they have a database, so there's no way for them to know what is or isn't copyright material. Many people don't know this. It is up to the copyright holder to go into the YouTube system, to give it samples, to say, this is our material, look for it, remove it when you find it. Or you have the manual claims like you saw against Kyle. So the issue there is YouTube, Twitter, Facebook, and all the other major platforms are not going to have a mechanism in terms of knowing everything that has copyright compliance or copyright material. It's gonna be up to the copyright holder to still feed that data. Now this is coming directly from wired.co.uk, so I'll put a link to this article down below. It says the final wording of Article 13 sets out exactly which platforms will need upload filters and which ones won't. Now currently on YouTube, when I upload something, if I'm just erroneous and I say, I'm gonna upload this entire fight scene from Avengers Infinity War, it will get captured, it will get immediately removed. You have a choice as the copyright holder. Do you want to monetize the material and just redirect the funds to yourself? Do you want to give them a strike, which is the most damaging to the content uploader? And then, or do you want to just remove it entirely? But if I uploaded something that's straight up owned by like Universal or DreamWorks or whatever, it will get caught. It will get caught during the upload process because that's a very cut and dry copyright. Those have the manpower and the money to go in and feed the AI, to feed the filters, to let them know this is copyrighted material. It's a lot easier to identify as well. I own this video right now. I'm creating it. I own it. It's my IP. It's on YouTube. They get a piece of the money, but this is mine. If someone else uploads it, I have the same options as Universal or DreamWorks would, or Marvel or Disney from any other piece of copyrighted material. The only way a site that hosts user-generated content can avoid putting in place an upload filter is if it fulfills all three of the following criteria. It said it has been available for fewer than 3 years. Not many platforms that we consume content on these days are fewer than 3 years old. It has an annual turnover below 10 million euro. That's not a lot of money if you're a hosting platform. It has fewer than 5 million unique monthly visitors. So basically, as you could probably guess, this means a huge number of sites, from phishing forums to niche social networks, will need to install filters. Let's just use, for example, like overclock.net, one of the oldest still running and operating PC websites with a forum. A forum that allows you to upload pictures directly to its own hosting database as as a registered user. And if overclock.net doesn't meet all three of those, remember, it could meet one or two, but if it doesn't meet all three, they have to have some sort of mechanism in place to filter out the copyrighted material. So one of the issues with something like overclock.net is the fact that, sure, they may not have 5 million unique visitors a month anymore, but they are definitely older than 3 years. And I don't even know how a site like overclock.net or any forum would be able to afford any sort of filtering system. That doesn't exist. YouTube wrote its own AI to do it. Facebook has its own AI to do it. These small companies don't have any way of complying with these type of overclock or these copyright laws. And I believe there's even an overclockers.uk or something like that as well. There's a ton of European sites that it's just, there's no way for them to stay in compliance with this. So what I see kind of being the obvious answer to that is they just remove uploading entirely. There's even clauses and other language inside of here that I haven't even gotten into yet that also refers to linking and hot linking to copyrighted materials. So how do you then control your users from being able to provide a link that then brings up a hosted image somewhere else of copyrighted material that's on your platform? And they want the platform to still be responsible for that. So I don't understand how this is something that's going to be able to be enforced. I have zero idea. It's just this, they just threw this whole blanket over the problem, but the blanket has a bunch of holes in it. It doesn't make any sense. So I can't see how sites like that are going to be able to enforce this. I don't even see how there's going to be enforcement over this at all, if you want to know the truth. I mean, outside of the major sites, like YouTube, for example, they're big enough to be on the radar, and governments and law enforcement will go after stuff like that. But the small guys, I mean, I kind of feel like you could slide under the radar, but do you want to take that risk? So there's another article in here, I believe that was like Article 12A, basically states that if you go to a sporting event, you can not take out your phone and record it and upload it to Facebook and share it with your friends without potentially also being caught under copyright. Facebook could also put a filter in place and say, we've identified this as copyrighted material, you cannot share it. So what does this mean if you're a European-based content creator? It means that the platform is gonna start getting a lot more stringent. Fair use is one of those things that's like probably out the window now, because how are you gonna determine what's being used in fair use if it's a voiceover on a clip that's being shown in its entirety, but it's still considered fair use, or just something that looks very similar to something that has been used in the past and it has copyrighted material. Fortunately, there are some ways around this right now. And I don't know how well this is gonna work in the future, but right now there are ways around it. You saw the ad earlier in this video, that would be that of a VPN or a virtual private network, where you're tricking your ISP and the platform you're connecting to and everything to look like you're connecting from somewhere else. So right now, if you live in Europe, a VPN of any sort that you trust is highly recommended, because for now you need to mask where you're from to kind of get around this law. So this video is just kind of putting it out there and making you guys aware of why it's important to stay active and involved in what's happening with your laws, specifically on the internet. The internet is the future, and a lot of the lawmakers understand that, but they don't understand exactly what it is they're making laws about, and you get crap like this. You get the European Union Directive of Copyright. Ironically, those people that are in opposition of it, Facebook, Netflix, Google, I think eBay was on there as well. A lot of the online sites. You know who's all for it? Record labels, movie producers, publishers, because they're the ones who benefit directly, obviously, from all of the copyright material, and so they don't want any bit of it, even a snippet or even a meme, to make it out there on the internet without getting paid. So it's pretty obvious who's for and who's against. Unfortunately, Article 13 has passed, and I believe it is now in effect, so things are definitely not looking great for the internet. So at the end of the day, between net neutrality in the United States and the Directive of Copyright in Europe, it's just not looking good for the future of the internet. And this is what happens when you have a bunch of old people sitting around not sure how to log into their Yahoo making laws about the internet. So anyway, I just wanted to get this information out there and just basically spark a little bit of interest for you guys to go and read and research this. And I am dead serious when I say you need a VPN. Like I said, even if it's not mine, a VPN is the only way to start having any sort of fight or pushback, because if they can't get the data from you to know what you're doing and where you're going and stuff, at least that's the first line of defense. It's not a foolproof one, but it's at least the first line of defense. All right, guys, thanks for watching. And as always, we'll see you in the next one.